Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hi, hello, it's Josh Bowe from MavsMoneyball.com coming to you with another edition of Mavs Moneyball After Dark. This time we have a 115-101 Dallas Mavericks victory against the Utah Jazz in their third and final preseason game. The Mavericks finished the preseason 2-1, finish up with a pretty nice dress rehearsal against a Utah Jazz team that has no intentions of winning many basketball games this season after blowing up the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert core this offseason. And as you can tell by me starting out this podcast, I am not joined by our editor-in-chief, Kirk Henderson. Funny enough, I actually just saw Kirk a couple hours ago. He hosted a lot of the MMB staff for a little get-together before the season started. We watched, at least I watched the first half together with him and the rest of the staff that was able to make it over. We had a nice time, had some good food. Got to finally put some real faces to the internet names that I know from our Mavs Moneyball Slack and editing their bylines over the last months and even years for some of the people I met today. So it was fun, but Kirk needs some time to clean up. He was a great host, so no sense in dragging him onto a podcast after he was so gracious with his house tonight. So, not much to talk about. It's a preseason game, but it's a preseason win. Normally in the final game of the preseason, you don't typically see a lot of the regular rotation guys and starters playing, but since the Mavericks are only playing three preseason games, which I feel is the least amount of preseason games I can remember in quite some time, they did a basically another dress rehearsal like they did against the Orlando Magic. This one even a little deeper. We didn't really see end of the bench training camp invite guys until the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. So basically up until then, well over, maybe 80% of the game, we saw starters in the main rotation, and it looked pretty good. The Mavericks offense, the final numbers look okay. 17 to 47 from three, 36%, 44.7% overall from the field, but it really, the numbers don't do it justice in terms of how good the offense looked in terms of generating open looks. Luka Doncic looked spectacular again, 24 points. He played 30 minutes in the preseason, which you really know that this was a dress rehearsal game. He was 9 of 18 from the floor. He looked great inside the arc. He only shot that poor, he only got 50% from the field because he was 2 of 9 from three. Just wasn't there from three, but otherwise everything else was there. Offense looked crisp. He had 5 assists. He probably should have had like 12. The Mavericks started the game shooting real poorly from three. Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, both slumped in the first half, but then kind of came around in the second half. Finney-Smith finished with 11 points. made 3 3-pointers. Everything looked pretty smooth. Christian Wood had another nice game off the bench, 12 points and 10 rebounds. Came down to earth a little bit. Funny enough, he shot 7 3-pointers, and those were his only 7 shots of the game, so nothing inside the arc for him. But the pick and pop with Luka looked really good. There was a sequence in the third quarter where Wood had a block and back-to-back buckets. And really and one of them was a pick and pop 3 in a Luka pick and roll. And it really kind of showcased, wow, this could be kind of what everyone was envisioning with Kristaps Porzingis, and maybe even a little bit more considering how efficient Wood has been in his career. So we'll see. Not as great as a game as the first 2 preseason games, but still solid. Basically every main rotation guy that played had solid contributions. Even Spencer Dinwiddie, who had his worst shooting performance of the preseason, 1 of 8, only 3 points, still had 9 assists and 0 turnovers. And he looked really, really comfortable running the offense as a secondary guy next to Luka, and also running the second unit when Luka went to the bench. It looks like we cleared up the whole Dinwiddie starting kind of media kerfuffle that happened earlier in the week. Jason Kidd had a media scrum, kind of talked about Dinwiddie running the second unit, and I think some wires got crossed in the media scrum, and that led to some thinking that Dinwiddie was not going to be a starter. But as you could tell, from the Mavericks for the dress rehearsal, they started the starting lineup that they basically have been saying they're going to start: Luka, Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith, Bullock, and McGee. And Dinwiddie looked good in his role. In terms of controlling the offense, of course, his shot didn't look great. But that's going to happen with him. I think last season, Mavericks fans need to understand that was maybe a little bit of a mirage. I mean, the numbers he was putting up shooting-wise were just astronomically better than anything he'd ever done previously in his career. And, his track record is he's more streaky than what he showed in Dallas. So that's going to happen. He's going to have nights like this, even if it's preseason, regular season. But what's nice is he was still able to contribute, 9 assists, 0 turnovers. Was really nice. McGee did his thing in 13 minutes, 4 or 5 from the field, 8 points. Probably the biggest positive of the night outside of Luka playing well was how great Tim Hardaway Jr. looked. By far his best game in the preseason. 20 points on only 7 shots, because he went to the free throw line 10 times with 6 of 10 from the free throw line. 4 or 5 from 3. Really looked like the Tim Hardaway Jr. from the 2020 season and the 2021 season. Last season was really rough for him. He never really looked right. He was struggling with his shot the whole season, and then January, he suffers a season-ending foot injury. So he never looked good, and then you have that injury. He wasn't able to play in the playoffs, so it was just a downer season for him. So it's really crucial for this Maverick season to be as successful as they want it to be. Hardaway has to be good, and he cannot be 30% shooter with lackadaisical defense like he showed last season. He has to be as good as he was in that 2020 season and that 2021 season, where he was, taking a high volume of threes and making, over 40% of them. I mean, that's his job. And when you watched him tonight, it was just another reminder, he's really one of the only guys on the roster that can kind of pop off from 3 in terms of, being a real presence off the ball. Finney-Smith and Bullock are great spot-up shooters, but they're not necessarily guys that are coming off screens and pin downs and scaring the defense. They're mostly shooting open shots generated by the offense. But Tim, they're running, he's one of the only guards on the roster where he can run sets and run off screens and catch and pull the trigger. And that matters, especially with a team with Luka and Dinwiddie, 2 guys that, love to find open 3-point shooters and facilitate. So it makes a big difference when he's good. When he's good, this Mavericks team, I think, reaches another level. So it was nice to see him have a good game before the preseason ended. Otherwise, business as usual. The only reason why this game was close in the first half, again, was because the Mavericks just could not make their open threes. There were maybe some slight defensive concerns in the first half. Lauri Markkanen had a crazy game. I mean, crazy for preseason, 21 and 10 on 13 shots. He looked relatively unstoppable in the first half. So clearly something the Mavericks probably need to work on a little bit as we go forward. But, otherwise, that's maybe the only blemish. No one else on Utah really went off. Rudy Gay had 16 points and 8 shots. Otherwise, business as usual. Mavericks get out of the preseason without any major injuries. They look relatively smooth, even in the game they lost. They looked fairly competitive from the guys that you care about. So, all good. Everything's looking good. Like you can't ask for more from a preseason than, you're the guys that you're counting on looking in shape and looking ready to go, and no injuries. I mean, what more can you ask for? I will say, watching this Utah team, and again, it is preseason, but it's clear that their goal is to not win as many games as possible so they could get a top draft pick for either Wemby or Scoot Henderson. They might have a couple too many, one too many veterans that can maybe make them as bad as they want to be. Like Markkanen had a pretty solid game. Kelly Olynyk is a solid veteran. Vanderbilt is a really rangy wing that can do a lot of different things, even if he still can make some bad miscues. But Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, I said before, Rudy Gay, like Colin Sexton is a young guard that can put up a lot of points. Like, they might need to make another trade or two if they really are serious about finishing with like the first or second, the worst record or the second worst record in the NBA. And hey, maybe that's the opportunity for the Mavericks because they could use a Mike Conley coming off the bench. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? You could use a Jordan Vanderbilt to bolster their wing rotation. That'd be cool. And if the longer we go into the season, these tanking teams are going to probably want less and less for these veterans because they just want to get them off the roster just so they can tank a little bit better. So that's going to be something to watch for the season, this season. But again, otherwise, hard to complain about this game. Everything looked good. The plan, I think the thing about this preseason is the plan is there. And the plan, like we always said, is Luka running the show with shooting and a rim runner and a pick and roll threat. Means the Mavericks can only be so bad. And if the preseason is an indication, that's going to follow through in the regular season. Like, the offense looks good. The defense, has its moments. I think it's going to be some work for that defense to be as good as it was last season. But they still have the pieces capable of doing it with Finney-Smith, with Bullock, with Kleba, with McGee's rim protection. Like, it's still there. So, otherwise, let's just get out of here. It's Friday night. I don't need to be talking about a preseason game that much longer, especially by myself. But again, solid game. No real complaints. Everyone's healthy. And, man, we've got regular season Mavericks basketball a few days away. Again, the regular season tips off Wednesday night in Phoenix. That's October 19th. After these crazy COVID seasons, it feels wild to be starting an NBA season this early. I know last season was kind of the first normal season after those two weird pandemic seasons. So it's fun to get back into the regular grind of basketball as opposed to what the craziness we had the last couple of years. So looking forward to it. Should be a really fun night with Phoenix and their weird vibes and, how pissed they were with that Game 7 loss to the Mavericks in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs. So should be a very hostile environment, and that always makes for some really entertaining Luka Doncic basketball because that's when he seems to rise to the occasion. So I guess that's it. Let's get on with it. We're going to have plenty of great content on the site between now and the start of the season. So keep checking MavsMoneyball.com between now and Wednesday. And then we'll see you guys Wednesday night after that game with another edition of Mavs Moneyball After Dark, and we'll get this regular season started. So again, this is Josh Bowe from MavsMoneyball.com, Mavs Moneyball After Dark podcast. Again, Mavericks beat the Utah Jazz 115-101 in their third and final preseason game. Mavericks rinsed a preseason 2-1. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you Wednesday night.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.